I've always hated driving at night. It always felt unsafe, like something could jump out at me at any moment. But after what happened to me a couple of years ago, I'm terrified of it. I was driving through an abandoned country road somewhere in West Virginia at around 2 a.m. I had been driving for hours. All I wanted to do was go to sleep, but there was no motels in sight. I noticed a lean, tall man with brown hair standing at the side of the road. His clothes were old and tattered. He appeared to be hitchhiking. I ignored him at first, but it was as if something was compelling me to let him in. I approached him and slowed down. He noticed me. I asked him if he needed a ride. He nodded. I let him in. I wish I never had. So, I said, "Where are you headed?"
"Anywhere."
There was something off about the way he spoke. He didn't have an accent or anything. It's just that his voice was so generic. It sounded automated, like something you'd hear in a text-to-speech program. The cryptic answer he gave unsettled me. Anywhere. What the hell did he even mean by that? I'm sorry?
"I said anywhere."
His voice had become firmer, more commanding. Something about it compelled me to just keep driving further and further. Before I knew it, I was surrounded by total darkness. My car had broken down. I couldn't move. I began hyperventilating, a cold sweat running down my back. Dark figures were circling the car. Some pressed their shadowy hands against the windows. Others scratched the car. There were even some faint whispers. I felt as if I was about to pass out. This couldn't be happening. I tried desperately to close my eyes, to get away from whatever the hell was going on, but I was paralyzed. More figures began looking through the windows, looking right at me. I looked back right at them, unable to look anywhere else, forced to. My breath became heavier, more panicked. The figures were scratching the windows persistently. I don't know how much time passed, but every second felt like an eternity. The scratching became louder and louder. Some of the figures were banging on the windows. The whispers had become growls. One of the windows shattered. The last thing I saw before blacking out was a shadowy arm reaching out to me. I woke up in a clean white room, sitting on a soft bed. A woman in a long white coat was next to me.
"You're finally awake,"
she said. What happened?" I asked.
"Your car was found flipped over on the side of the road. Frankly, it's a miracle you're alive."
I was too relieved to be shocked. At least now I was alive, safe from those things. I suddenly remembered the man I had picked up. Oh God, was he safe? Had those things hurt him? What about the other man in my car? She looked at me with an expression of confusion.
"There wasn't anyone else in the car."
I was too stunned to respond. It had all been an hallucination. It seemed like the least terrifying explanation. I accepted it for the sake of my sanity. After a long stay at the hospital, I finally went home. I moved on with my life, never telling anyone about what I saw that night. But even now, on dark nights like that one, I still see shadowy figures reaching out to me in the corner of my eye.
So this was told to me by an old family friend, Nikki, numerous times as a kid growing up as one of those life advice stories to keep in mind through the years. And to her credit, I have never forgotten it. Whenever anything associated with hitchhiking comes up, It always springs to mind and probably always will. Makes me a bit ill whenever I think about it. So Nikki, who grew up at the same time as my dad, was about in the early 80s. I believe it was a young woman in her mid-20s. She's one of the real kind-hearted souls, always willing to help another one out in a time of need, you know? And I can't imagine her being anything other than that. So I totally see her doing this too. So driving to the city, about a 2-hour or so drive out of town, she saw a man walking down the side of the road. As she neared, he turned and, in the typical hitchhiking manner, stuck out the arm and thumb. Nikki, bless her heart, pulled over and asked him if he needed any help. She told me that he was really polite, if not a bit shy, when he asked for a lift into the city. Nikki gave a smile and popped open the passenger door for the guy, who tossed his bag into the back seat and buckled up for the ride. They talked pleasantly for most of the trip, about friends, the news, etc., you know? Happy small talk. She felt that they were getting on really well and even bought him dinner at a pit stop a little over halfway there. She says he seemed really flustered and awkward when she paid, but one of the things they talked about was money and how he was pretty dang strapped for money, which was why he was hitchhiking in the first place. But he was eventually relented and they went on their way. As soon as they got into the city, he thanked her profusely for the ride and the food and asked to be dropped off once they hit downtown. Before getting out, he asked for Nikki's phone number so he could contact her someday to catch up. Thrilled at the prospect of knowing how her new friend was faring, Nikki wrote it down for him and drove off with a warm feeling of a good deed done. Now, I'm sorry if you were expecting something creepy to have happened right now, but I think this is what freaked me out so much as a kid. How nice everything seemed to have worked out. Nikki gets crease in her forehead and a funny look in her eye, which she tells me the next part. How a week later, she got a phone call from her driving buddy. He didn't let her get a word in edgewise after hello, and told her that she should thank God that she was raised so nice. Because when he first got in her car, he was planning on raping and murdering her once they got into the pit stop. That he was going to steal the car and dump her body in the ditch further down the road and go on his merry way. But after she talked with him so kindly and treated him to dinner with a smile on her face, he couldn't bring himself to do it. He didn't think that he could live with himself after doing that to such a nice lady. And to please, Nikki, please never, ever pick up another hitchhiker. Then he hung up the phone. Nikki never got a call from him again. When she tried redialing the number, she got a payphone. And so, Mr. Hitchhiker, I know I'm never going to meet you because I'm going to listen to the advice you gave your driving buddy, and never, ever pick up a hitchhiker.